Commission meeting to order for Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, item 4, is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak about any subject that's not a specific agenda item. Do we have nothing
I
tonight?
don't have any.
Okay. Number 5, discuss and consider the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of July 11th, 2018. Any comments, corrections, additions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and second by Phyllis to approve as presented. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Discuss concept plan presented by John Schneider from Property Revival LLC for a subdivision on former Monona Grove School District property, Lot 2 and 3 of CSM 12330, located near the intersection of Damascus Trail and Killian Trail. No formal action will be taken on this item. Should be a link in your packet. And gentlemen, are you here for that? Yep. If you could come up and sit at the table and introduce yourself, and sure. I think we got the technology ready for you. So.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here today. My name is John Schneider. I own a company here in Madison called Property Revival. We are looking at purchasing this piece of property here on Damascus from the school district and looking at subdividing one lot. This is lot 3. Into 9 single-family residences. We basically are staying in line with the existing single-family residences that back up to it. And we intend on building the homes and selling the homes to various builders throughout Dane County. We'll likely build a few of them ourselves, depending on how the market is. We'll do some, and we'll sell some off. Lot 2 initially was thought to be a duplex lot, but it's not. And there's a large easement there, so we'll be building a single-family residence there as well. And we're going to stay again in keeping with the deeds and restrictions of both West Lawn and Quail Highlands, and kind of try to keep it similar to the styles and restrictions that are of the existing community there. And that's basically all I have.
Okay. For a point of reference, the middle school would be above.
Correct.
Yeah, where we can't see. Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, Aaron, any input on that?
Yes, this is basically the first step in the platting process. John will come back with a preliminary plat and then a final plat. As you recall, we changed the ordinance to require at least one neighborhood meeting for all subdivisions now, and he did do that last Wednesday. So a few very brief recap of that meeting here in the staff report. I think the main concerns at the time, it wasn't clear that they were all going to be single family at that point. So there was some concern whether there would be duplexes or not, but as it's laid out now, there are not. I think the other issue that came up a lot was just what are the deed restrictions going to look like? What are the houses themselves going to look like? Are they going to be comparable? And I think you had mentioned you're going to work with the covenants of the surrounding neighborhoods to make
It
sure
only makes sense as the developer there to try to stay in keeping with the existing styles and restrictions that are existing in the neighborhood. Something that's not compatible would not be as marketable, so we'll do our best to stay within that.
Otherwise, obviously, the streets are there, the sidewalks are there, the sewer and water laterals are already put in when Damascus Trail was built. It was always the intention to do something very much like this. I think the school district just didn't want to do a plat instead of a CSM at the time they split up the property for whatever reason. But that's what they're looking to do now.
Okay. Any comments, questions from plan members?
So to be clear, it's 10 total, right?
It is 10 total lots.
1 on 2 and 9 on the other lot 1?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? I don't know, Lee, anything on your end?
No, I talked to Aaron earlier today, and there'll be a short developers agreement
to make sure that, you know, you follow the rules that you, or follow the provisions that you are submitting, but other than that, it should be pretty straightforward.
Does the developer's agreement come as I'm submitting the preliminary plat to you guys, or
Yes.
who do I
Well,
get
we
for
can-
guidance in that area?
Generally, Lee drafts it up, and then you would review it.
Okay.
We can start that now. It's not usually final until we have all the conditions from the final plat. That's gonna include it.
So we'll try to get out something that gives you at least an idea of what we'll be looking for.
Okay.
And then from engineering, he's gonna have to have just erosion control, grade,
Yeah, so that'll all be part of the
that
next.
kind of stuff, okay.
But again, a lot of the utilities are already in place. I think
Yeah.
you know, it's probably pretty close to its final grading and things like that already. So.
That's the
Okay.
way I understand it.
At our last village board meeting, we were talking about the streetlight issue. I can't remember, I think JJ brought that up. Are streetlights out there already? I don't even remember.
They should be at the corner of.
Okay.
Clay and Gillian. We don't have a street light in the middle of.
All right, I was just curious.
Oh, do we do that?
Okay,
So
All
we
right.
potentially could have to add maybe one street light in the middle of the lot there.
okay,
It'll actually be part of the developer agreement.
Okay.
all right. Okay, sounds good. If nobody has any questions, I guess the next step then is to get paperwork finalized and come forward with a preliminary plat then?
Yeah, so our intention is to have the preliminary plat delivered to you by Monday,
Okay,
so that we can be at the next meeting.
okay, perfect.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, item 7 is discuss and consider application for a site plan amendment from Madison United Rugby to add a storage shed at their facility located at 513 Clark Street. We have one gentleman here, if you want to come up and, I think anybody?
Actually, no one from rugby is here yet. We could maybe
Okay,
push that aside. The gentleman who just walked in is Steve Steinhoff from Carpsey.
okay,
And he wanted to speak to us a little bit about what they're doing and I think how they can help us out. We could maybe put that under as a public appearance.
sure. Okay. Steve, if you want to come up and sit at the table here and introduce yourself.
Great. I have some handouts. I don't know if I have enough for everybody.
I can hand them out for you.
Okay. Great.
Hey.
Hi, my name is Steve Steinhoff. I'm Deputy Director of the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. And thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about this initiative that we're doing to update the regional plan. I'll walk you through these slides quickly. Does everybody have a copy? Okay,
Yeah, we have.
Great. But the punchline is that we have an online survey that we're going to be soliciting public input throughout the region starting on September 12th, and it'll run for 2 months. And we want to make sure that we get participation from throughout the region, and that we want to make, including the residents of the village of Cottatoga Grove. So I'm really as much here to update you on what we're doing as to hear from you. You know, what are the best ways to encourage participation from the village residents? So I'll just quickly flip through these. You know, the second page just is a quote from the Wisconsin statutes giving regional planning commissions, the 9 of them throughout the state, the charge of preparing and adopting a master plan for the physical development of the region. The next page just points out that the last time this was done was 1997. It's a long time ago. It's way overdue. You know, a few things have changed, like the internet. So to facilitate, this not only is it part of our state statute, it's part of the mission statement that was adopted by the commission to facilitate a shared vision and regional plan with communities. So we launched this initiative called Greater Madison Vision. I think somebody was here about a year and a half ago talking to you about it. That was part of last year's our outreach and engagement. We made 39 different presentations, held 19 different workshops, attended lots of events. Why are we doing this? In large part because the public sees it's important. When we commissioned a survey 2016, 3/4 said it was very important, extremely important to have a shared vision, long-range plan for growth, but most people didn't think the region was doing a good job at that. So the Greater Madison Vision adopted this mission itself, to develop a shared vision and plan to guide public and private decisions about how the region grows, to foster exceptional quality of life, economic opportunities, and a healthy environment for all. So as you can see, this is to guide decisions. This is not in any way have any type of enforcement authority behind it, but it's the basic concept that regions that plan and do together in a coordinated way are stronger regions. They can be more competitive, can better enhance quality of life, tackle regional issues like making sure, keep minimizing congestion on the roads, keeping housing as affordable as it can be, things like that. So we assembled a broad-based steering committee, 46 members. Most of them are from the private sector, corporate leadership, government leadership, nonprofit leadership. So we felt when we looked at best practices around the country, one that emerged was the importance of involving the private sector, not just the government sector. So we are actually in year 3. You can see last year, how do we get there, engaging the public, stakeholders, growth. That was part of the presenting to you. And now we've taken that input, worked with the steering committee. We've developed alternative scenarios for the region, how the region might grow and develop, how it might tackle some of the key big changes and challenges we face with technology, like driverless cars, population growth, 150,000 people. Next 20, 30 years, that's 2 Camp Randall stadiums worth of people, and all the houses and businesses and roads and schools and et cetera, et cetera. How that happens matters. I already talked about our outreach last year, and the result of that is this online survey that presents these 4 what-if scenarios. So each one is a what-if. What if communities in the region focus their energies on one of these 4 big areas of change that we expect to be experiencing, and how might growth and development happen? And then each one includes a growth option. You can see there's the 4 little maps going across. Obviously, you can't make out much of this scale, but when you see the survey, you'll be able to zoom in, explore those in more details. We present actually 8 different indicators that are estimates of how each of these growth patterns might perform in terms of key variables: energy and transportation costs per household, miles driven, what it might cost for infrastructure and fire and EMS services, and in addition, what additional costs, how much agricultural land is consumed. We want to promote this survey. Our goal is to get 10,000 people to participate, because it's not just about getting information from the public, it's also about raising awareness, increasing outreach, building support for this initiative, so that as we carry forward, when the steering committee takes the input, uses it to craft the vision and plan, shares that with the public, that the public will know about it and be more inclined to get behind it and to make it happen. So youth voices are important to us. We're planning for the long term, so it's going to be young people, high school age or so, that are going to be sitting at these tables in that time frame. I certainly won't be. I hope not. And so we have an incentive program. We're offering cash donations. We've raised corporate sponsorships for this initiative, and some of that's being used to award cash donations between $500 up to $6,000 for the youth groups that generate the most number of completed surveys. It's After-school group or the entire high school could participate. The Wanakee High School, they're going to have all their students take the survey. Other youth groups, like the Middleton Youth Group is participating, the Goodman Community Center, lots of different groups. So not only can they raise some money, but again, their voices can be heard in this process. So to the meat of it, really interested in hearing from you, and I'm going to run with a pen so I can take notes, is how can we best get the word out and get participation from residents in Cottage Grove?
We're actually preparing to do something very similar. It's on our agenda tonight. We've
I
got
saw
a
that.
draft of survey questions that ideally would get out probably a little bit ahead of when this starts, but one of the questions on there would be asking people if they want to submit their email address to get follow-up information about our comp plan, but certainly we can use that list to send a message out about this survey when it becomes active as well.
Okay.
And certainly we
great.
can,
Steve, I guess I'd shift gears just a little bit and say that our experience with CARPC over the last couple of years has been really negative.
I understand that.
And I think that that will be an important part of getting acceptance and is addressing to Dane County the people that come to you and say, well, okay, we have this plan and we're submitting this, and then you have no real idea. And between Matt and Aaron and myself, I mean, we all got knocked around pretty good. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, where are these questions coming from? Why aren't we should be able to know what the standards are. We should know what CARPC's real authority is, and that even seemed to be at issue. The DNR is telling us one thing, CARPC just seems to kind of ignore that. So I'm glad that you seem to be aware of the problem, but I'll be interested to see what kind of steps are taken to address it.
Yeah. We've been working on making changes. It's like turning a big ship, and it's not, it takes time and it takes a sustained effort. We went through a strategic visioning process in 2016 that resulted in this change in mission statement that I've read. So to focus more on regional planning, seeing our local communities as our local governments as our primary constituency and customer, and that we're here to serve them. So that was a step, maybe step one. Secondly, we've revised the USA review process in a couple ways. We don't, the authority is clear that CARPC is only making recommendations to the DNR, and the DNR is making decisions. And the recommendations are whether or not an application complies with the legal water quality standards. So right now, CARPC is not actually even making a decision. They're making it, or they're not deciding on the application itself. They're deciding on what we call a management letter that is being sent to DNR. And because the decision is not on amending the plan itself, it no longer requires a supermajority vote. So we made that change as well. So now a simple majority vote. And that's of the people present. So before it had to be 8 votes. Now it's a simple majority of those present. The harder part, to be more, candid, is changing mindsets and behaviors.
Right.
And we have commissioners who've been there on the commission a long time, and that's a more difficult process. I'm thinking that that we're steadily improving over time. I think the switch to majority vote, holding a separate vote on just a management letter, on the water quality aspect has helped things. They also take a vote on a management letter on the land use and transportation part. That's completely advisory and goes to the applicant. And the applicant can do with it whatever they wish. I'm hoping that as part of this Greater Madison Vision process, that we will, with a vision and plan and then also regional land use plan, that it'll put us in a better position to work with communities up front as they're preparing their comprehensive plan. I've made this point a number of times to the commission that that's where we can have the most and the best influence, is having discussion when people are thinking about, at the stage of thinking about how they're going to update their plan, and we can point out what regional objectives are, how they might apply and to a local community. We can offer planning resources, scenario modeling resources, for example. The tool we use to model these maps, we can make that could be available to model alternatives at local levels as well.
Well, I would tend to agree with you that changing some of the attitudes and opinions of the CARPC members, because staff was good to work with great suggestions, but to pick up on your analogy, we felt like a little PT boat being cut in half by the big destroyer, and we're kind of like, where did this come from?
Right.
So anyway, I think as long as you're aware of it and that'll be part of the process or trying to get some change, that's a good thing.
Right. And it's good to hear your question because, and your concerns, but then I can relay those back, to the commission as well. Because I've tried to make the point that if this is our mission, then having an antagonistic approach and relationship undermines that mission.
Yeah. Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, other ways, if you have you mentioned if there's a regular email distribution list that the village has, or, putting it on your website.
You can reach out to the school district and see if they want to
Yeah.
do something similar.
Exactly, right.
Consider an
Follow us on
analysis.
social media. We want to hear from everybody. It's important that we hear from everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
All right. We still have nobody here from rugby, I guess.
Are they going to show up?
And it doesn't look like it, but it's a fairly straightforward project. They're looking to do a small storage shed. They have some lawn and equipment, things like that. They had a mower that got stolen, which I think is what's prompting building the shed, just to be able to lock up their equipment. It's not changing the intensity of the use or anything like that on the site. They're not doing any new grading or anything like that. It's just a cleary metal building that'll match
Okay.
the building they have on site.
We had,
Well, I'll always defer to Aaron on the planning aspect of this, and I just want to raise the issue with the plan commission, and I'll raise it with the village board too, and that is that I'd like to see this tabled, and the reason for that is while it is separate from their plan, which we first got in 2008, if you read through the plan, they were supposed to have this project. Well, first, let me back up. We sold the property to them with the understanding that there would be a project that went with it.
right.
And between Aaron, Matt, and myself, I've lost count of how many times we've met with them and said, what are you going to do about the plan? And then it's almost like, oh, there's a plan. And then we send that to them. And then, or the agreement, right? And the facilities agreement. So there are many, many copies of this floating around, and we're happy to supply more. But honestly, we've never received a response per se to, we said, will you just give us a timetable for a submission of a new plan of proposed amendments to the agreement. And I think we met at the end of 2017, and we had meetings with them, and they said, well, I think it's in good shape. It's ready to go. And I just said, well, what do you mean? What's the plan? And we've never gotten an answer to that.
Okay.
So, if they can really come through with the project that they've talked about, that would be fabulous. But I think from a legal point of view, at some point, somebody's going to ask, well, you sold them this land, and this was land that at some point, we have to, this isn't really quite the right term, but we have to make up for that land for the acreage that we sold off.
Right. I was here when we did that, I kind of remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're kind of left hanging out on the limb here without them really doing anything to indicate to us, well, yes, we have some proposed revisions, and this is what they are. So we haven't really even gotten that far. I don't know, Matt, Aaron, if that's.
I mean, they met with us fairly recently, and they're optimistic that they'll be building within a couple of years, but
That's a separate issue than what they're trying to currently do, and that, right? I mean.
It is.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying.
It is, but I think that they're just continuing to take advantage of us by submitting this without doing anything with the plan. That's, would I go to the Supreme Court on this? No, but I probably call the press or something. It's just, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Is there a deadline date on the plan that's on?
Any deadline that they've even hinted at has come and gone long ago.
Yeah.
And honestly, as I look back on that agreement, I think, well, could there have been dates or this or that? They were calling us almost daily because they were ready to go. Got to get this done. And I said, okay, fine. And it's just sad.
Yeah,
So,
for 10
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Is this, do we have a price involved in this and what it will do for tax rolls on if this goes forward or not?
The shed,
Yeah.
I don't have a number, it's probably not gonna be a huge number.
We put $25,000 on the
Yeah.
permit.
So that wouldn't translate into much, but if they did their clubhouse or whatever they were talking about, then there'd be some tax increment.
Well, and there are certain things that the
Maybe a
village has done.
nonprofit anyway.
Yeah.
Hmm?
They're a nonprofit anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I bring that up to you in the sense of, I would like to apply some pressure to them in the sense of, look, we'd be happy to consider what you want to do, but you need to let us know what you're going to do with this plan. It's just sad.
And by virtue of them not showing up tonight, I think it's fine if they get a letter from Matt or Aaron or Lee or somebody that said, well, you were on the agenda, you weren't here, here's kind of where.
I would just table this, I mean, did they have to pay a fee for this? Yeah, so I mean, I would just table it,
Okay.
and then that gives them a chance to come back and we can take it off the table and proceed but then they would have a month to do something about the plan that's in place.
And
the
being
agreement
that
that's in place.
this started back in 2008, I think it's important that plan members and village board members are new, they're not the same people, they all should know the history of what was expected when we started this.
Yeah. I'd like to see that facilities plan, or the
If-
plan that it's been floating around.
I'm more than happy to send anyone and everyone who would like a copy of the agreement and of the exhibits, and there was also an amendment to the agreement. More than happy to provide that to everyone. And again, I'm not trying to throw cold water on this so much as I'm concerned that, and it's happened, where there have been some voices that have said, hey, what about that land? And, you know, we're kind of left out in the cold here.
Was this part of the plan, one way or another, or is this?
The shed?
Yeah.
I don't
It's an
know.
amendment to it.
It's an amendment to the
Yeah.
plan, yeah.
I see they got a parking lot. Right.
Well, again, it's frustrating because, you know,
Yeah.
in good faith, and it was not necessarily a popular decision, Jack, as Jack knows, and Phyllis, I think you remember, that we sold the land to them. And I can remember coming to a parks board and getting roughed up more than a little bit, and, you know, but it went through. But I think that, you know, the village has been fulfilling its parts, and now I'd like to see them step up to one way or the other.
Were we expecting them to come tonight?
I thought so.
Yeah. Somebody was supposed to be here from rugby, but, so I mean, just by that, we could table it just because of that, because,
Yeah, that's where my
Well,
head.
if they think it's important, I think they should have been here.
yeah, they paid the money for a permit, right? Or-
I'll make a motion to table.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and second by Phyllis to table the rugby, Madison United Rugby agenda item. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to table passes. So
I
Aaron,
appreciate your due process concern, so
no, it's-
you've learned well.
so Aaron, item number 8 is what you were talking about, similar to what the gentleman from Carpsey was.
Yeah, the next two items, basically.
Okay. We
So,
can take them together if you want, that's fine.
sure, what we have in number 8 is the public participation plan for the comp plan. By state law, we have to have written guidelines of how we're doing public participation for the plan. The only change I'm proposing to it is under number 1 here, using the SurveyMonkey website for a more comprehensive type of survey as opposed
Take
to
care.
doing a few questions at a time on Polko.
Okay.
And then the content of that survey is what we'll look at under number 9, but
Okay.
I guess I'd be looking for a vote to finalize this change to the participation plan.
So do the other numbers then
Yes.
cover everything that's needed for Polko? If we're changing number 1 to just be SurveyMonkey?
Yeah, the rest of it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, looking at your memo, I mean, we got the Survey Monkey and the issues at neighborhood village-wide levels, including questions, okay? And
So then you can use it more than just for this one time? Like if something comes up in the future, you can use the SurveyMonkey for other things?
We could. Polko seems best when it's one kind of simple question at a time where someone can pull it
Yeah.
up, answer, and be done with it. Some of the questions we asked the first time around, I think, were too complex for that, and that might have scared people off. I think if they know they're going in to do a survey, they expect to spend 10 or 15 minutes on it, and
Sure.
And I think, like, it's really still very new. We're coming up on 1 year using Polko, and as more and more area communities take it on, and a lot of them are, I think it'll become more normalized because people will see postings from other communities and questions, and I would think a year from now we'll see, where right now we get between 30 and 60 responses per question. Next year maybe it'll be, 50 to 80 or something like that, and I think we'll
Right.
see it creep up because I think it's something new. People, they just don't want to register for it because they think there's something behind it where, their information is somehow being tracked, and that's not true. So I actually talked to Polko today, and they're working on like a better informational release so people can understand what it is, and we can, put that on our Facebook pages. But yeah, in the meantime, to kind of use both, I think works.
Is SurveyMonkey free?
Yeah,
But Polko we pay for, don't we?
yeah.
A small amount, right?
Yeah, I think going forward, it's 3,000 a year,
Okay.
yeah.
I think the Parks Department on the village's behalf has a subscription for SurveyMonkey that allows more
Oh.
functions, but it's a pretty minimal amount.
Great.
Any other thoughts or comments? I mean, I'm fine with this amendment and
Mhm.
change. I'll make a motion that we approve item number 8.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second to approve. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. And then on to item number 9, Aaron.
Oh, I should have
Yeah.
asked, so SurveyMonkey, is that gonna, how are we gonna distribute that?
We have an email list with the Parks Department we can use. We can advertise it on Facebook. When we did a similar survey for the park plan, we got like almost 500 responses.
Oh,
So I think if we can do
Okay.
something similar for this, that would be
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And again, the difference there is, that, you know, as long as we're not too sensitive to the results, they're not, SurveyMonkey's not gonna be as scientific in the sense that you could vote from your phone, from your tablet, from any other number of
Oh,
devices that you
yeah.
have. So the same person could vote however amount of times, where Polko keeps it to one vote.
Mhm.
But,
Well, now you just
For-
told everyone.
Yeah. but it's still,
No,
it's still good feedback.
yeah.
Okay.
try to make it long enough, they only want to do it once.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So number 9 is the actual survey. So I guess I'd just be looking for feedback. Are there other questions you think we should be asking or better ways to ask some of these questions? The first page or so are basically more demographic type of information, and that's as much as anything to help sort the later responses. So you can see how people in one part of the village respond or how people of one age group respond, that sort of thing. Skipping down to number 9, asking people to rate different aspects of the neighborhood they live in, you know, as far as
Mhm.
street trees, street lighting, maintenance, things like that. A few questions about biking, walking in the neighborhood. Do they do that? What would inspire them to do that more? And then some broader questions about the village, as far as pace of development in different land use categories.
I almost wish we could have number 13 right at the front so people would see it, because I think it's a lot of good information.
Yeah, and this is actually a repeat of one of the questions we did do in Polko that I think we want a wider response to, but
Mhm.
you're not just asking the question about the housing, but providing the data and trying to put it in some context, so it's hopefully more of a educated response. 14, asking about different categories of businesses that people think we need more of or have enough, or that they don't think would be appropriate, or they could also respond that they're not against it, but it's not something they would actually use.
Oh, so is this like you have the A sit-down restaurant, and then a person could push like need more, have enough?
They could
or
click
not.
good, fair, poor, not applicable.
For each one.
Okay. Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
And that'll be more obvious when it's actually put into SurveyMonkey.
sure.
Okay.
And then 15 is more of a visual preference survey. It's kind of examples of different types and scales of development, ranging from a large mixed-use project in the first question down to a single-family residence and sort of a higher density single-family neighborhood. Just asking people, where do you think within the village any of these would be appropriate? They could say as many or as few of these as they want.
Well, is the NMBB interchange the intersection? Or,
Yeah,
okay.
actually, yeah, intersection, not interchange. I'll change that.
It makes us sound really big. Kevin Tanner.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
But I picked one example of each type, really trying to focus on what the, the massing of the different buildings more than anything else.
Yeah.
Sometimes people respond based on whether they like the style or not, but that's kind of unavoidable unless you do a whole bunch more examples of
Right.
different styles.
So with the houses at the back, looks like you have, is that like a quadplex? I guess the,
The one
Yeah,
with
so
the
more of a-
garage doors on the bottom? or the-
Yeah.
Townhouse type example, then a duplex, then a larger single family, and then
the second
single
one.
family that's a little denser and closer to the
And then, so the last two photos, is it like the style of the house that they're looking at, or,
I guess the density of it, I think
oh, the density?
and somewhat to the size. I think the second to the last one is probably something, more typical that you would see in the village, where the yard appears to be a little bigger and the house is a little bigger, whereas the one below, the garages on these must be in the back off an alley. You don't see them in the
Right.
front, they're closer together.
Okay, okay.
I may try and find a better picture that gets at that without all the trees in the way. But that's what I
Yeah.
have for this.
'Cause-
Um,
Are there just gonna be the pictures and not like a description?
That was the plan. I could expand a little bit on the general question ahead of that. So,
Maybe say single family, like the single family home, for instance.
trying to make it clear that we're talking about the massing, the size. as much as-
Yeah, maybe that would be, because I mean.
With that
I
one,
like
I
how
mean,
the
you'd really
houses-
hope people wouldn't say anything other than local street.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, exactly.
It doesn't really make any,
Yeah,
but-
North of
but
I-95.
the others, yeah.
Mhm.
You never know, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like all the varieties of businesses that you have in here and the apartments. I think,
the neighbors next to Shady Grove wanted single-family homes along BB.
oh yeah,
So-
that would work out great.
Yeah, I wasn't really looking at the business names, but we may get votes for this one because they want the Chipotle or something.
Don't put a picture of a
Oh,
Casey's
yeah.
on there.
No. We could cross out the, I don't know how technically you want to.
Yeah. But yeah, just as, I guess what Melissa was saying, just kind of an explanation, okay, this one's a strip mall, this one's a quadplex, whatever, just so they kind of know what you're referring to, I guess, as far as density, but otherwise I like it.
Did you come up with all these questions on your own, Aaron? Or did, like, take them from previous POCO, or?
I mean, kind of. I think they're fairly typical of something like this.
Yeah. I think you've done a good job.
Yeah.
I think with number 9, I find that to be a kind of awkward question. I don't know. Just as far as like, I wouldn't know how I would answer it,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that other people wouldn't know or give you answers that you're looking for. With that one, are we trying to figure out what people like best about their neighborhood? Is that?
Basically, yeah.
And to know how good repair it is in, or do they want more maintenance or not, or,
Yeah, and then are we gonna do anything about it if, well, we don't know where they live, do we?
yeah, well,
You would know
the general
general
area,
quadrant.
we do.
Oh,
Yeah, because at the first question, they have to put kind of which quadrant they're in. is that-
are you gonna have a map for the first question? Just, some people aren't good with directions.
Yeah.
You could.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, you could put a picture of question 1, I guess.
Might be getting a little too technical now, I know.
Yeah.
But,
But just a visual, so people know exactly which area they live in.
Towards Lake Michigan is east.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Towards Madison is west.
West, yeah, yeah.
I actually, if it's towards New York, it's east.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Really global.
The Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific, right?
California's west.
All right,
Yeah, oh,
I
that's
kind of like the question of what do you like about your neighborhood as
Yeah.
opposed to, in addition to this, maybe asking that a little bit more directly, why did you move here? Why,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, like what?
that's something we can add.
Something like that, yeah, that's good. Makes more sense the more I read it though, so.
So then the plan, I can make these edits and we're going to take it to the village board next Monday. And do you guys want to see it again after that or?
Next Monday already?
Or no, 2 Mondays.
the
Okay, good.
20th.
I'm used to the CDA being before the plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we need a
We
motion on
don't.
that?
Yeah, it's a discuss and consider, so I mean, you want to make a motion?
What did you say you were going to?
No, if you want to make
Okay.
a motion. then-
I'll make a motion to approve the, let's see, are we at 9?
Yep.
The content of the online survey for comprehensive plan amendment
Okay.
with the edits or.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion by Melissa and second by Phyllis to approve with the edits discussed. Any other discussion?
I don't think we have to see it again, Aaron, or not.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
No, we don't.
Just to
No,
answer
yeah.
your question.
Yeah,
I'll see it at the village board.
right,
Yeah.
okay. Sounds good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Number 10, discuss existing condition maps for sub-areas in the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan amendment. Got 2 attachments for that one.
So this is similar to what we did last time. I don't think we need to go through them in as much detail as we did last time. It's the existing conditions for basically the sub-areas between 94 and BB roughly. So again, the aerial photo with the building outlines, topography, wetland areas. And then, in addition to these, what I'm working on right now is all the existing land use maps for the different areas.
And the comprehensive plan, does it have like one map like that showing each of the areas then, so that when they,
Yeah,
sound like I didn't know,
yeah.
then they would know? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Alright, of course. And then these maps help developers to know where they could develop in our village.
Yeah, it's just different ways of looking at the property. The topography certainly impacts development and stormwater drainage and that kind of thing. The water features, there are definitely areas where you can or can't build. You have to have buffers around wetlands and things like that.
Well, they look like areas in our village, so they're on our village to me.
And these are just base maps. When they get stuck into the document, they'll have titles and updated legends, things like that, that'll make them a little more clear as well.
Looks good.
I
Looks
think,
good.
I can't see anything I'd do different. I mean, it's pretty thorough.
How many more maps you got left, or is that like the last page?
Lots.
Lots.
It's a big overall project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You dream about maps, huh?
I like that. I like making maps. The future land use are the kind of final ones we'll look at, and those will be the interesting ones that, where we kind of consolidate all the feedback.
Great.
Okay. Sounds good. At some point, this would all be like on a link on the website then? Is that the ultimate goal or?
Yeah, I think the current version, it's probably several links. I think each chapter is separate
Yeah.
just because of the size of it, so it's probably recent. Yeah, it'll all be on the website.
Okay. Good.
So has it changed much from the current one then? Or is this,
It's a little bit different approach. The older version of the map that's on the wall there, the future land use map, it kind of just took the different land use types and painted them over the areas. It doesn't really, according to that, single family in one area is the same as single family in any other area.
Right.
This way we're kind of, this time we're kind of starting with the neighborhoods and looking at the pieces within the neighborhoods and how the neighborhoods fit together, and each different area will be described separately. So single family in one spot may not be the same as single family in another, for example.
Great.
Okay. All right, that brings us to item 11, comments from commission members. Kyle? any?
No comment.
Okay, Phil?
No comment.
Melissa?
There's a school board meeting tonight.
Oh,
You
is
can
there?
go to right after this.
There you go.
Are they talking about facilities?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't
I
know.
like what would be on the referendum.
Yeah, I think they might be. I don't know if they're voting tonight.
They're voting to see if it goes on November's referendum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what
Otherwise,
they
I
say.
have nothing else either. Matt or Aaron, anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks for coming. We needed all of you.
Yes. you're
Yeah,
welcome.
future agenda items, I guess we wait on the rugby thing until we hear from them, or how do we?
Yeah,
Just-
maybe kind of a busy meeting next time. They'll be
Okay.
back. I think Mr. Schneider will be back. We've got a conditional use permit application,
Okay.
a few other things.
All right.
Any word from Shady Grove or Park? What is that?
Parkside Ridge.
Yeah,
Parkside Ridge is going to revisit, they're just putting it on the table for now and gonna wait till next year.
Oh, okay,
Costs were a little more than we
Mhm.
were expecting.
okay.
And Shady Grove, I mean, just waiting for them to submit zoning approval. I think they're ready to start working on a development agreement, but, we've kind of let them know that it's probably in their best interest to get the zoning started because,
Mhm.
I mean, we're passing along the cost, Lee's happy to work on the agreement, but if,
They're
it's
not-
kind of like that might be a waste of,
Right.
not a waste of money, because I mean,
Right.
you have to make the,
Good to know.
we're trying to get them to submit the zoning.
Right, right, they have to be doing their
Yeah.
part too, right, okay.
Yeah.
Are they gonna get the house cleaned up?
Yes, so you probably, if you've driven out there, you've noticed the old farmhouse has been torn down for
Mhm.
about the last month or so.
Mhm.
And building inspector has been getting on them to get it cleaned
Yeah.
up. We've gotten a couple just, phone call complaints. And they were out there last week, 2 different days, but it seems to be going rather slow. And
Mhm.
if they just got the right piece of equipment and crew there, they could probably do it all in one day. But, we don't like to impose a penalty, but I think through the building permit, Tom can, he can
Move
get
it
on them a
along.
little bit. And if something's ever really bad, it's always the last resort, but the village can
Mhm.
actually take care of it and then bill them. But,
Right,
Right.
hopefully they'll do it.
yeah,
Mhm.
so,
Great.
Before
Okay.
it snows.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anybody want to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.